3 episodes in, and I'm still not used to that theme. Love it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, the first one in a mini-series of episodes in collaboration with Women-Led Games, founded by Charmaine Duff. And one of the episodes is going to be with the founder herself, but in ahead of the Women-Led Games showcase in March, I wanted to just reach out to a number of women developers from the indie game development community and from the game development community in general. So this episode is the first one in this mini-series, and I hope you guys enjoy it with Kay Anderson. But before we get into the actual episode as usual, a couple shout-outs to my Patreons, Feynoko, Zagini, Fishbumdev, and Peleg. You guys are amazing, and I love having your support every single month. If you too want to support the Indie Diarist, please head over to theindiediarist.com, where you'll find a link to the Patreon page, to the Coffee page, and all my social media channels, including the newborn, YouTube, and of course, don't forget to join the Discord. But without further ado, let's get into this episode. Indie Diary number 34, Kay Anderson. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, a show on the human stories behind indie game development. Speaking to you today is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony Wolf, and today is another special episode because as part of my collaboration with Women-Led Games, I am dedicating some of the podcast slots to just speaking to some amazing women developers from the indie game development community or from the game development community in general. So today with me is Kay Anderson, and actually, Kay, just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. So what do you do, where you're based, and what you're working on right now?
Yeah, hi. My name is Kay, as Anthony already said. I'm a narrative designer, based in Germany at the moment. And yeah, I have been lately working on Kobold Nations of the Ultra Core, a little survival sandbox game. Don't want to call it MMO, but tendencies there. But yeah, that was what I was working on latest.
Okay, there are some MMO tendencies then. That's absolutely fine. Okay, yeah, well, it's great to have you here, of course, and I always like to open these interviews with a little question, a little icebreaker, which is, if you could be any game's character for a day, who would you be and why?
Oh gosh, that is a good question. I think I've got to say Lilith from Borderlands.
Oh, okay.
She's a badass character, and my power is there, and the universe is insane, and that's just exactly my type of world I would actually enjoy living in. Maybe for a day, not longer, but a day could be fun.
Yeah, Borderlands doesn't sound like the most pleasant place to be. I suppose it's in the name
not
itself.
Long term, but...
But yeah, Lilith is a great choice. Yeah, love it. Yeah, actually, I finished the first Borderlands just recently, and it was just great. I haven't played the whole series. I know the Borderlands 2 is great, so I'm looking forward to starting that one soon. But yeah. So, well, I'd like to... These episodes are a lot about the people that come on the show rather than the games they're working on. So I always like to start from the beginning with my guest stories. And I want you, okay, if you want, to think back to your childhood. Like, what's your earliest or fondest gaming memory? Something that involves video games.
Oh gosh, I think on one hand, playing Crash Bandicoot with my dad.
All right,
like,
okay, yeah.
Just above the age of not drooling on the controller anymore. So the typical player 2 situation with him actually playing, giving me the unconnected second one and pretending like I'm actually doing something was a great bonding experience. And yeah, I think this involvement really early on is what actually got me so insanely into games. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is very similar to one of my earliest gaming memories, which was playing Spyro with my dad. Like, I remember there was one time when my dad liked Spyro so much. I don't know how long we played it for, maybe like a day straight or something like that. And then that night he dreamt about being, the Spyro levels where you're actually flying through circles and collecting little items along the way. So he dreamt that he was flying flying on top of Spyro in one of those levels, and I remember that. And from that point on, maybe he got scared and he said, "No more video games for me." So anyway, to each their own. But yeah, no, it's one of my earliest gaming memories to just play with my dad CTR, Crash Team Racing, and with my uncle too. So yeah, that's those are things I'm very fond of. And apart from Crash Bandicoot, of course, which games do you remember playing growing up? And do you think they're having like an influence on what you're working on right now?
Oh gosh, of course, for one on the other end as well, Spyro, it feels like this epic double pack. Always
Yeah.
have the Crash and Spyro players. It's always, yeah, so that one as well, of course. Lots of Pokemon Stadium, Pokemon, the like earliest Game Boy Color ones. I remember at the Frankfurt airport, they had a gigantic child section just with slides and all that sort of stuff, and there was like a
Nice.
tiny corner with a Nintendo at that time where you could play Super Smash Brothers against other children who for whatever reason had to wait there as well. A bit like the IKEA Small Land situation, just drop them off and get them busy while you're doing stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah,
Like the
and there
McDonald's
was
kids area, like just have fun,
exactly,
and then
yeah,
while the adults eat.
yeah, we're busy, do something, please.
Exactly.
So and so I spent a lot of time at the airport because my stepmom at that time worked there. And so they sometimes dropped me off there, and there were lots of kids just playing Super Smash Brothers with me all day. And oh gosh, beyond that, there was a lot at that time on the Game Boy Color and later Advance. And from Nintendogs over the very early Smurfs game, I still remember them.
Oh,
Or
Smurfs game. Yeah, I remember them.
yes, yes, yes. Oh gosh, terrible game. I have to say,
I remember a platformer on PS1. It wasn't so terrible. It was definitely difficult though. For a 7-year-old at least.
definitely. Oh, all the old Disney games is something I remember
Yes.
quite fondly, actually. The Hercules game, the
Yeah.
Aladdin game, Lion King, of course, which was freaking hard as well, to be honest.
Oh yeah, it was very hard. Yeah, no, the Hercules game. That time in the 90s when Disney Interactive was releasing a lot of games, a lot of tie-ins and a lot of games on license, and they were beautiful. Like Hercules was great. There was another one that was super fun to play. Tarzan. Tarzan was
Exactly, yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
amazing. Great game too. Yeah.
Those were actually so well done.
They were so well done, yeah, and then they just realized at some point. Oh, I still remember this from reading Jason Schreier's book on the games industry. At one point, when mobile was rising, someone among the Disney ranks decided to do a market research and came up with the idea that console and PC gaming was going to be dead in like 10 years. So there was no point in investing in console and PC gaming, and that was, of course, over 10 years ago. So I'd say it's still holding up pretty well. But anyway, what can we do? And then they shut down the Disney Interactive division. Well, anyway, I don't think
If that kind of
they ever understood games that well, to be fair.
true.
There's an interesting point in your bio from what you said to me, and that for the listeners' reference, as part of the collaboration with Women Led Games, there was a form that we sent to the Women Led Games community, and a lot of developers got in touch. And as part of your bio, Kay, you mentioned that you wanted to become a forensic biologist. And then you switched to games. So when did you realize you wanted to make games? Was there like some sort of epiphany, aha moment?
I believe it was more like a bit of a forced transition at first, or
Okay.
the epiphany probably was games is actually something that I could get into, that there was a doorway for me to get into it. Before that, I grew up very I was always very creative, always did my own D&D games, wrote my own stories, and it was always like, okay, kid, you're not going to be the next J.K. Rowling, or bad example at the moment, but the next Tolkien, whatever. You're not going to write this big series that will earn you millions. Writing just doesn't pay off. That's nothing you can make money from, that's nothing you can live on. So do something proper. Quotation marks. So I decided on my next bigger passion, which at that time was biology. I was in a very much emo phase of my life.
Okay.
So all in for the macabre and a bit of gory stuff. And
Right.
I
Yeah.
thought,
No.
okay, dead people, super interesting.
Yep. I remember
And
writing a lot of those short stories too. Yeah.
so that was like driving me into that direction, going to biology studies. And then I was very ill from 13 on. So severely disabled, might not see it, but had a lot of issues medically along in my life.
Hmm.
Kind of reaching its top with a stroke in 2017.
Hmm.
And that was like for me the point. I struggled beforehand, very much inflammation on all the organs and stuff like that, always kicking me out of studies again and again. So I had to redo semesters and stuff like that. And that was the point when I realized, okay, being in a lab for 8 to 10 hours, that won't cut it for
Hmm.
me. It won't work. Just can't. And then I was very lucky to get into contact with my later mentor, so to speak, who saw that what I was writing actually was useful, you may say. He was good, he liked it a lot, and he was like, I'm looking for someone to assist me on a few stories and at that time a bit of paperwork. And how do you feel? I'll take you under my wing and just introduce you into the scene, which was amazing because it was all I ever dreamt of. All that
Hmm.
was, I was always told would never work. So it was just a major coincidence that at this time I really had this breaking point in my career that I had to reorientate myself. And this door to what I always wanted to do suddenly opened.
Hmm.
So a lock shot, and I went for it and was like, okay, I'm all in. And dropped
It's
basically everything.
you mentioned decided to trade one unrealistic career dream for another, but somehow made it work with the second. So yeah, I think that sounds like it, and it's so important to have. It's so great that you had like a mentor that took you on and believed in you, and I think it's important to have those supporting figures when you're just trying to figure out what you want to do. Writing, especially as a craft, I know it's one of those things that, it gets shunned a lot these days, because you're like, people will tell you, oh yeah, maybe do something proper, something that will bring you money and that kind of stuff, as you said. But then you find that one person, that one teacher, or maybe you're lucky enough to have, supporting parents like I have, and you find, and you have the right people in your life that encourage you and that understand you, and they want you to go forward, and those are so important. So if anyone wanting to get into writing is listening to this, then let Kay be your role model, because yeah, I think her story is,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think your story is amazing. And also, like what you said, what I was good at was writing, daydreaming, structuring stuff, making up insanely fun things, and playing video games. So you decided to put them all together, I guess. That's great. So throughout your game development career, or your experience in game development, is there a particular challenge that has left a mark on you? Any big learnings that you want to share with other devs?
What I realized over the time is that getting all the different kinds of experiences, I have to say. I did some interactive audiobooks, I did some gamified events, like on-site events, but also online events, did
Mm-hmm.
some board games, did some video games. So there's a lot of different stuff that speckled around my career and that I worked on. And it just helped me to find this, or not exactly find, but this inner voice I developed for all the different scenes and scenarios and
Mm-hmm.
media types is such a valuable asset. Because when it comes to writing to a target audience, it's really, how can I say it? The most important thing is just to be authentic and really transporting the entire character into just maybe one single line. So there can be so many different personas in, but yeah, I think all the different experiences just sum up into having so many different perspectives, so many personas in yourself that grew from these experiences that you can very well use later on in narrative design when it comes to developing different characters, because all all these perspectives are actually what makes a character authentic and organic. And I think just getting many different perspectives, many different impressions in is what for me is the most valuable tool over time, to really have all the different voices for characters and perspectives on worlds and creatures. Take everything in, learn from every experience, and try to put it into your game. It's like my biology background is a lot in the games I make, because I find it
Of
absolutely
course.
fascinating how the ecosystem and the creatures come together, and tying that in just makes them so much more grounded into the earth, because it somehow makes sense. It's not just utter clutter, just things I picked up here and there and just smushed them together,
Yeah.
but they're based on something and they have a connection to the world, and many things like that. Different people you meet, all the facets they have, just take it all in and try to store it somewhere in the back of your head to use it at some point for really the organic, authentic characters.
I'm always endlessly fascinated by all the different types of writers there are out there. Like, we all have different backgrounds. I come from a communications background, so I work in social media for my day job. But that also means that having studied sociology, I love dystopian fiction. But there are writers who come from a history background, from classical studies background, from biology, and we always put our own background into what we're doing. We always try and tell stories with what we know, and that kind of extra knowledge that we thought was going to be useful for something else is usually useful to tell better stories, which I think is really amazing. But yeah, so as part of this, and now I've got a couple more questions for you, which may be a bit tricky. So only answer them if you feel comfortable doing so.
Absolutely.
But as part of the Women-Led Games collaboration, of course, what we discussed with Char, who you might know from the Women-Led Games community, where all the challenges that women are facing in the industry, and around the fact that, it's a male-dominated trade. Although, the player base is kind of evenly split. There's about 50% of each gender, or people identifying as one or the other. So would like to ask you, as a female developer, what has been your experience? What have been your biggest challenges and struggles, and how have you managed those?
For one, I think it's still a matter of being taken seriously in a room full of men. It's such a cliche, and usually I am very comfortable and very open and a bit headstrong, so I usually demand the respect. But sometimes it's when you're in a room with four more experienced male, colleagues, it really is hard to put your foot down, because you sometimes get just strictly talking over, and it's like we have a completely different vibe going on between us, and they're, you must just say they are very present just there. And while you're listening, getting a foot into that conversation feels sometimes harder, because it just sometimes you get spoken over, and then building up the courage to say, hey guys, listen to me for 1 second, I actually have something to say here. It takes the second of just building up the courage. And on the other hand, sadly, I have to say, some negative experiences with, sadly, the community. So there's been people approaching. We always worked on a collective community Discord, and just being there and being connected to either a game or event led to people just approaching you via Discord or whatever. And they tend to sometimes be not so nice, or straight up, well, really uncomfortable, so to speak, something you try to avoid by keeping communication short. But I'm someone, if I was always a huge game nerd myself, so connecting to someone who actually makes the games I love is something that can be just extremely fun. It's just gives you a certain connection to the game even more, and you feel heard as a player, which is something I think is extremely important. So now and then I give it a shot, and then now and then again a few times, only among the cases where I try to connect to the players, it's, yeah, strictly spoken, it's uncomfortable at times with people getting a bit too personal, a bit too
Yeah.
close, a bit too just, they just overstep boundaries now and
Yeah, they
then.
yeah, they
And
assume they can just step over boundaries and such, yeah.
yeah,
I was
and that,
speaking about this to Andreas Ravia, another developer from this that came from this collaboration with women-led games, and an episode that will come out a few weeks after this one. But she was saying the same thing, like being taken seriously in a room full of men, or just all the people just being straight uncomfortable. Unfortunately, she had great experiences at the development studio where she worked, and everyone was super supportive. But also, that development studio has, as far as I know, still has a woman as a CEO. So maybe it comes from the top, and maybe that kind of culture is something that the CEO there built. But it shouldn't be that way. It should be like that everywhere. Just a culture of support, and making everyone feel empowered to speak and just share their ideas. And nobody should talk over one another, as you say. It's a
yep.
very, very big problem in the industry, and of course, I'm sorry you had to go through those experiences. I think there's a lot more that this industry can do to support people from underrepresented backgrounds and improve representation and all of that. And yes, I hope that we will get there, especially now that it seems like maybe one big AAA company has lost their CEO, which was particularly toxic, but I'm not going to name names. So yeah, we will get there eventually, I hope.
And I must say that the former company, on the other hand, was very, like, before we even launched our game, it was a big discussion about doors are always open. We know that this is bound to happen. That's just how the whole industry community at the moment is. Nothing we can do about, but we always have an open door. They always support everything in that concern or on that topic. It's just sometimes, well, it just happens if it, especially if it's outside influences that you can't control, and you can build up all the support you want. I think the best thing CEOs or lead persons can do is have an open door, have an open ear. But sometimes it's just out of their control what happens. Or if the discussions get heated, it's like, it's the heat of the moment, literally.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that is very, very hard to avoid in total. That just,
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's just it's a matter of culture, it's a matter of bias too, and the things that you don't that you subconsciously do and you don't even realize as a male. And speaking as a straight white male, I know exactly what those things can be. So yeah, but you can get better at things, I suppose. And another question for you, again, only answer if you feel comfortable speaking about it, but you mentioned, of course, your disability and the fact that you had the stroke at the age of 24. How was your experience working in games after that? How did that make you stronger? I suppose it did, and that kind of stuff. If you want to talk about it, maybe give advice to other people, maybe in the same situation.
I think there is a lot of potential, and that is still swept under the rug a bit, or we're taking a few steps back again. But there is a lot of potential for people with disability in the whole remote situation, and the pandemic being a huge setback for everything and being a huge annoyance and risk, it had the good thing that remote work suddenly was an actual thing, which helped me a lot, because at that time I just wasn't able to go into an office or attend meetings and travel long distances. So having the opportunity to actually work remote all the time, and no one complained, and everyone was posting jobs remotely, and that actually made it a lot more accessible for me. It's a sad development that people are starting to pull their employees
Yeah.
back into the offices. I don't quite get it, but that just opened up a huge opportunity for people with disabilities who are bound to stay home and take more downtime for their bodies, etc., to still participate in the workspace. And I think that should be something we explore more, that we encourage to just. It was a huge accommodation to everyone whose body is not doing exactly what they would like it to do. And so that was something where I would encourage the entire gaming industry, turn your back on the whole office thing. It's just, I
Absolutely.
understand that there's a few professions where you just can't stay at home all day, but especially the video gaming industry has all the options in the world of having their people global. You have the talent you can get from all over the world into your office and onto your game. Why would you limit yourself for having people on site? And I think that was a step in the right direction that we should not lose just because some people feel, I don't know, even know why, because I feel more comfortable having real oversight over the people, but
Yeah, I think it's a problem of trust, most likely. People who don't feel like they can trust their employees to do their job, which conversely is a problem of culture, and employee culture, because and company culture too. Because if you build a culture of trust, then your employees will do what they're supposed to do. But also, it's like micromanagement and all those things, I suppose, and also the fact that maybe some people are just old-fashioned and they like being in the office, or they like the personal connection. It depends, but I think it would be great to give people the choice, like my company does with me. It's just, if you want to come in, come in. If you want to stay remote, stay remote. I'm within commuting distance of the office. I could go every single day. I just don't, because I feel more comfortable being at home and in my own space, and I feel more productive too. But other people go in pretty much every single day, and it's nice to have that kind of choice. And as you say, you could have such a diverse pool of talent to pull in from remote in the games industry. And everybody, literally, probably everybody, can do their job from remote in the games industry. So from project managers to the developers, art directors, of course, you want those meetings, you want that chemistry and such, but, it's when you're writing lines of code, it's not necessarily something that you need to do in a meeting. So, yeah. But of course, for juniors, it's different. But that's another thing entirely. But moving on, you may have noticed that this chat has become a bit deeper over time, and so now here is the key question that I like to ask everybody who comes on the show: why are you a game developer? What drives you forward?
oh gosh. I must say, as not only I get to do what I absolutely love myself as like a private person, not professional, having impact on something that has become the probably most cultural relevant medium over the time. What was music and film before is what games basically combine now. It's such an overall sensory and well-rounded experience. Out being able to participate in that is just, there's so many ways of telling stories, there is so many topics you can touch on, there is so many stories you can tell, and in something that really feels impactful because it's growing and growing. I think I read recently that the gaming industry is more than double or triple the size of the movie and the music industry counted together in terms of
Yeah,
people who
no, it's true.
consume
I
it.
remember that.
And that is just, I had a discussion recently with a friend of mine who said, who knows, maybe in 10, 20 years from now, students won't be analyzing movies anymore, but start analyzing games and the story behind it. And that it just feels like this step forward to something that's going to be culturally really impactful, and where you can drive education with, where you can show off all the different things that interest yourself, but also have maybe a very niche community, and that you can spark the passion for other people too. Topics no one ever cared about can be displayed, and there's just, you have everything in realm of possibility to really touch on. And display it and bring it to the people in all these diverse ways. There is simply no real limitation. And that is like for my creative and a bit of chaotic mind that opens so many opportunities to express myself, express the idea of something that otherwise could never be shown in a way that video games open it up. So,
Well, that's me asking a question like that to a writer. Lovely answer. Beautiful answer, definitely. So yeah, I agree with every single word. It's such a beautiful medium with so much potential, and I've always loved it. Ever since I started understanding more about it, ever since I started writing about video games, just in just in my free time. About I think it's about 10 years ago now. Oof. But yeah, totally agree. And if you could identify something that maybe drives you backwards, what would it be? What's your biggest struggle as a developer?
I think currently with facing all the layoffs, etc., it feels like something you love and that you really pour all your soul into is never really yours. And
Yeah.
you're just part of something that could always let you go, that might never be well received by others. I think as writers, it's something that you kind of are used to. You can't accommodate everyone. It's not like you're gonna yeah make everyone happy with your choices or what you want to write about, what you want to do. And this whole process of coming into a game, pouring all your heart into it, pouring all your soul into it, and then it might never happen in the way that you want it to happen. And of course, it's a team effort, but there's sometimes situations where you really put your heart into. That's just this full commitment you give, and that's what makes something you work on so impactful and so authentic again, because you really are in that project. But in the end, it's just it's just a game, it's just media. You might lose your job on that, the project might never happen, it might never be well received enough to continue on, and there's so much potential again that you would still want to pour into it, and maybe it's not going to happen, and it just feels like it's ripping out a piece of you when you lose something that you really was so connected to.
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean. As writers, we feel that, I suppose, when we give our our baby to others, and then they can make with it what they want. But yeah, I totally see what you mean. Okay, well, I guess we just have a couple more questions, which will be hopefully a bit more fun. So I want you to imagine writing a letter to yourself, but let's see, maybe at the age of 25. What would you say?
Oh gosh, there's a lot to unpack. No, I guess I would have taught myself to get out of studies earlier and start really doing what I want to do, and explaining myself that there was potential in what I actually dreamt of and that it could happen if I wasn't clinging so much to the idea that I have to do something real. And I think that would be the main message of just get your butt up, get it out of there, and really pursue what you want to do, and don't hold yourself back just because someone else is telling you that you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, great letter. I would love receiving something like that, definitely. So yeah, I'm sure you would. Your younger self would love it as well. Right. Well, okay. What can I say? It's been a beautiful chat. Lovely speaking to you. And of course, it's time for some parting words. Where can other people find you? And if they do, what is the best way to support you?
Oh gosh. First of all, if there is someone out there who would like to connect to me in terms of I'm trying to get into the narrative, into the gaming industry, always have an open inbox, always happy to help, happy to connect, happy to explain, lead on. As I said, I was beautifully mentored into the industry, and I'd be happy to give some tips, advice, or whatever to whatever aspiring game dev, narrative designer is out there. You can find me on mainly Instagram. I'm not the most active social media person, I have to say. Not my thing, but I'm there with under Kiwi Inc. with a V instead of a W. So that's a way to contact me. And otherwise, sorry, I must say I'm really not much into social media. So
That's okay. I mean, one channel is better than none. And of course, I will put your email and the channel and the Instagram channel in the description of the episode, so people can find you and connect with you. So, well, I guess all I can say is thank you. Thank you for your time, Kay. It's been lovely speaking to you. We touched on some very, very important points, and also your story is so inspiring. I'm sure it will inspire a lot of other people to just try and do what they want to do. Maybe even, abandon those studies that maybe someone told them are going to bring them to a very profitable career, and start pursuing what they really love and what they really want to do. But yeah, I wish you all the best.
So thanks so much for having me, and yeah, been really nice talking to you, and
likewise.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. My friends, is a wrap on another episode of the Indie Diaries podcast. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Kay for being a beautiful guest to have on the show. I loved speaking to you about your story. I loved hearing your story. It's just amazing, and I really do truly wish you all the best. So, guys, listeners, travelers, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. There are a lot of ways in which you can support me now, which is by leaving a rating or going on to theindiediaries.com, looking for my Patreon and Ko-fi links, and just maybe leaving me a little donation. That would be absolutely incredibly appreciated. At the same time, you can also follow me on social media. That counts as support too. And my new YouTube channel, I've started publishing shorts on it. I've started publishing some video content. So I'm pretty sure things will become pretty interesting in the next few months. And also, of course, a pretty important thing about the Discord channel, which is you can join the Discord, the Indie Diaries community, and it's so full of incredible developers and people from all over the world who share the same beautiful passion for games. So I hope to see you there very soon. Lastly, if you are an indie game developer yourself, please get in touch. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you come from, so long as you have an interesting story to tell, because my listeners are always hungry for them, and I am always hungry to hear those beautiful human stories from the indie game development community.